Hello, I'm Dr. Susan Madsen. I'm the founding director of the Utah Women in Leadership Project at Utah State University, and I'm also the Karen Haight Huntsman Endowed Professor of Leadership in the John M. Huntsman School of Business. And I am thrilled today to tell you more about a new initiative, or I would call it a movement, that we have been rolling out across the state called A Bolder Way Forward. In fact, we had a large launch on June 9th, 2023 with Zions Bank. I have to say that 2022 was a restless year for me in considering ways that we can shift things for women and girls in Utah faster. I'm not alone. So many of our partners and collaborators in Utah have been feeling the same. So what we know is this: national and statewide studies continue to show that women and girls in Utah are not thriving in critical areas. In fact, year after year, Utah continues to have high levels of domestic violence, sexual assault, child sexual abuse, and gender-based discrimination, while also ranking us the worst state for women's equality and having low levels of women's leadership representation in nearly all domains, and that includes business and politics. Now, although the needle has moved slightly, and I say ever so slightly, in a few areas, with its current trajectory, it will take 3 to 4 decades to make notable progress. And I have to say that's just too long. It's too long for me. It's too long for my daughter and my 3 granddaughters. It is time for Utah to embrace a bolder way forward, because when we lift girls and women, we lift all Utahns, and that's means families too. If we're serious about ensuring that Utah girls and women thrive, we need to create change much faster. In fact, by 2030, with the checkpoint in 2026. And that includes creating bold goals for each of those years, 2026 and 2030, which we have done already. And I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. This also includes a shift from outputs to outcomes. So instead of just measuring the stuff that we do and what we accomplish, we want to focus now on what changes in society. And that's really an important element moving forward. So let me tell you a little bit about the inspiration behind this. So in October of 2022, I actually, and I have studied societal change for years. Let me just tell you that. But in October 2026, I actually had 2 flights to Costa Rica, 2 flights back, and I read this book, How Change Happens, Why Some Social Movements Succeed While Others Do Not. And basically, these researchers looked at movements that have been very successful in the United States, like Mothers Against Drunk Driving, gay marriage, the National Rifle Association, what happened with tobacco and significantly less people now smoking. And so they compared successful movements with those, even if they had a lot of money, that just didn't move. They just were not successful. And what was the difference between the two? And so I'm going to tell you in one slide what that is, but I wanted to, I really, if you're interested in being engaged and being part of the solutions, read the book as well. So what does it talk about? So to do this, we need to utilize systems thinking, which is the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So systems are made up of interrelated, interdependent parts, but they cannot be understood as a function of an isolated component, although each part needs to be working well. A system cannot be understood only by focusing on what each part is doing. It needs to consider the relationships among the parts so that all work together in more powerful ways. Now that's the key to more boldly advancing a common cause. Now, I do need to say that in Utah, we have been working hard on related efforts for the past few decades using the parts strategy, but not moving together as a system. But according to the research, successful movement leaders bring diverse coalitions together. Movement leaders act as part of a larger network and position themselves to enable the parts of the system around them to succeed. It is called networked leadership. It is leading from the middle and bringing the efforts and initiatives and programs and voices together that are working on specific areas of focus. So here is the model of a bolder way forward. Here's the framework, again, focused on helping more Utah girls and women thrive. And as you can see, it really has been an uphill road, an uphill battle in some ways for girls and women in the state of Utah. Many organizations like mine have been working on programs and efforts and initiatives, but I really see this road has a lot of potholes. And I see a lot of what we've been doing, making the road smoother, which is important. However, we have not actually moved the wheel up the hill. And we need to do that to really make sure that more girls and women thrive. So when you look at this, you'll see 5 boxes, and these are categories of different kinds of areas of focus. If you start on the right, you'll see safety and security. And overall, we have 18 what we call spokes or areas of focus. Within that safety and security, you'll see child sexual abuse, domestic violence, poverty, homelessness, sexual assault, and sexual harassment and gender-based discrimination. Now, in each of these areas, we're not starting from scratch. We have partnering organizations and individuals who have come together to say, yes, we're part of this, we're doing work in this area, we're passionate about it, we want to co-lead this particular spoke, or they're already doing work around. It's trying to bring together the pieces so that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And so that's what we're doing. You can visit web pages on boulderwayforward.org to see who's leading the partner organizations and many more details. So if you'll go over a little bit to the left, you'll see health and well-being, health across the lifespan. Actually, that spoke has 8 sub-spokes, and the 2 anchoring organizations are Intermountain Health and University of Utah Health, with Regents Blue Cross Blue Shields being a really strong supporting partner. Lots of things going on there. We also have home and family. And then if you'll go over to the left, you'll see we have 3 areas within education: finance, higher ed, and K through 12. Going down a little bit, 7 different spokes in the workplace, including childcare, entrepreneurship, gender pay gap, leadership development, organizational strategies and workplace culture, STEM fields, and workforce development. And then finally, this one is important for everything else. In fact, all of them interact with each other. If we make movement in one, we're going to start making movement in others. But this one is really 3 parts: political representation, more women in elected office, boards and commissions, and civic engagement and advocacy. So these are really important elements, these 18 spokes. But if you'll look on the wheel, you'll see the different spokes. You'll also see 4 words, phrases along the rims. And these we call impact teams. They're things that permeate across all of the areas that we need to keep in mind and do work with. And so things like, you'll see sexism. We have a whole team on sexism. Under identity, we have numerous impact teams. We have 50 plus thriving, disabilities, interfaith, LGBTQ, neuroequality, race and ethnicity, refugees and immigrants, and veterans and service women. Under culture, right now, we have 2 impact teams: arts and music and women's history. And then, of course, you'll see something that's very important. We have an impact team that's getting bigger and bigger on male allyship. If we don't involve men, if men don't understand how they can be allies for their daughters, for their spouses, for women in the workforce, all women and girls, this is not going to move forward so that we can make sure families are thriving in a better way within our state. So those are impact teams. One thing that's not represented on this visual is that now we have to really get into the counties and the cities and the towns. Well, we have at this point, and this is February 2024, 16 county coalitions for the Boulder Way Forward setup. We still have a few more. There's 29 counties, But by May of 2024, we expect all of the counties to be set up. So lots of things going, really exciting efforts. And overall, the goal of the Boulder Way Forward is to make Utah a place where more girls and women can thrive in any setting. And I'm talking about the home, in the workplace, in congregations and communities. Although there's not one metric that can assess and measure this overarching goal, we have worked with all spoke leaders to craft powerful 2026 and 2030 goals for each of their areas linked to measurable outcomes. Yet we are continuing to locate and track national and state data on all aspects and are creating visual dashboards so progress can be tracked. So through finding and collecting and visualizing data for each spoke, we can track changes over time. This means that all Boulder Way Forward networked community, business leaders, Utah residents in general will be able to view metrics for all change efforts. And then importantly, to implement spoke and action community goals and strategies, a mix of tools are needed, including advocacy, communication, grassroots involvement, mentoring, messaging shifts, networking, philanthropy, public policy, research and resources, sponsorship, training and development, and more. In fact, grassroots involvement across the state is foundational to societal change. This comprehensive, in-depth examination is not currently being done by anyone in Utah, and according to our knowledge, it is not being done by any other state. So we truly believe that using a Boulder Way Forward framework, Utah can become a national leader in how to implement positive change for girls and women. So Utah must do better to ensure everyone thrives. And our vision is not to lift girls and women at the expense of boys and men. That's the scarcity mentality. Instead, we believe that there's enough for everyone through cooperation and collaboration. That's the abundance mentality. When we strengthen the impact of Utah girls and women, as I said before, we can strengthen everyone. For updates, join us on social media and sign up for the Utah Women in Leadership Project's monthly newsletter at utwomen.org. And also, we just started a Boulder Way Forward mid-month newsletter, and you can sign up for that at boulderwayforward.org. You can also complete a Boulder Way Forward advocate survey to get involved. To conclude, I love this quote by Martin Luther King Jr. Every society has its protectors of the status quo and its fraternities of the indifferent who are notorious for sleeping through revolutions. Today, our very survival depends on our ability to stay awake, to adjust to new ideas, to remain vigilant, and to face the challenge of change. I believe that across the state, many of us have been sleeping through some of these issues and challenges. Most people know that they are there, but often we don't want to engage because these are uncomfortable things to talk about, or maybe we just justify them away, or maybe we don't know how to engage. Maybe we don't feel empowered to use our voices in areas like domestic violence or sexual assault, child sexual abuse, the gender pay gap, or any of the issues, honestly. Well, that is changing. I will tell you. It is the time right now. I'm feeling it. So many other people are feeling it. We need to make Utah a place where everyone can thrive. And I welcome you in. Whatever that looks like, join us, because together we can make a difference that will change lives and change Utah's. Thank you.